Hey, how's it going, guys? HonestlySarcastc here with artifactsccg.com. So, what I want to talk to you today was about Kanna, pretty much. I think Kanna has been pretty touted as like one of the best blue heroes. And while it's I can kind of agree to an extent, I believe it's only for certain decks. So, for the sake of it, this is Kanna. So 212, like none of the other blue characters have anywhere near enough health in comparison, but a lot of them have very similar damage. More of the mainstream ones have 3 attack, but the differential between 2 and 3 kind of almost doesn't matter, because like 4 is really where the breach or like the boiling point hits, because with 4 you can kill an enemy melee creep. So now the big thing here with Kanna is that she sets you up to always deploy your melee creeps in her lane. So it's kind of one of the things where like, all right, well, you've removed the RNG from part of the game to that respect, but it also causes you some issues. So I can't use any of the photos or screenshots from the actual client, so I figured I would do it on Tabletop Simulator. But I did forget to grab Prey on Weak. So one sec, let me grab that real quick. So I think most of Kanna's actual kind of like power really comes from Prey on the Weak. And like Prey on the Weak's a pretty huge card. If you have anything like Conflagration or Ogre Magai's Ignite, it can set you up to make many of these 2-1 Hound of Wars. They're just very generic, 2 attack, no armor, 1 health. But if you have 2 or 3 guys on your side that are damaged and 3 or 4 on your opponent's side, then you're spawning 6-7 guys right there, and that's a pretty powerful swing. But Kanna's weakness comes into play primarily here. So like, let's say this is a pretty generic board setup. We're going red green versus red blue. I'm not gonna like play out stuff or draw hands and whatnot, but I did do a randomized board to start. So your normal thing here is assuming no one's casting anything. This melee creep's gonna die. You're gonna take 8 to the dome. We'll delete those. This creep dies. This creep dies. And this Treant Protector is gonna end up taking 4. You'll go 2 to face. But now the big thing will be on the subsequent rounds. So if you notice here, all of the melee creeps died to whoever's fighting heroes. We didn't get any heroes lining up against each other besides Treant and Kanna, so it's kind of like whatever. And this is treated as our third lane, as signified by this the 3 here. So what would occur is that our minions are going to spawn with Kanna automatically, so we're probably looking at 1 here and 1 here. But the opponent immediately knows that unless we spawn our hero, which is Bristleback, in let's say the Axe lane, it's going to immediately line up to Axe unless they're spawn the hero there, as well as like, let's say 2 melee creeps or hero and 1 melee creep. If just a 1 melee creep goes here, then if I go Bristleback, it's going to auto go against the Axe. So it's like, all right, there's benefits there, because you've correctly like kind of targeted their hero. If in this lane it's a 50-50 between those 2, and then if 1 melee creep spawns, it'll just go here. If 2, then we've increased to a 33% for each of the slots. So like, in theory, you're like, all right, well, I can more adequately have Bristleback kind of line up against a hero when my heroes, opposing heroes don't like match up. The downfall is that your opponent knows that both of yours are going to line up with Kanna's, so they can do the same. In this situation, because it's Legion Commander and Axe, it's kind of like, all right, this is fine. An opposing Bristleback lining up can't kill either one of them on the up and up solo. So it's just like, unless you have a pump here, in which case him coming up against Legion Commander, he needs 1 extra damage to be able to get the kill. So it's just like, all right, which way do I want to do this? So like, Kanna's ability is super duper useful, but I think it causes you huge dilemmas. The reason being is, since you're now no longer getting random melee creep spawning here, you're not going to have random blocking of your opponent's heroes after they've killed your melee creep. Your guys are going to really have to fight on their own versus whatever comes down randomly, as well as whatever your opponent places in the lane. That can be like a huge downfall here. in this situation, 2 melee creeps spawn with Kanna, so she kind of already has backup. She can get to 5, and you're gonna try to like spam out minions or creeps. Sorry, wrong game. Don't hate me. So it's just like, all right, this will be fine, but a lot of the time it ends up backfiring pretty heavily, because if your opponent, let's say, goes bristleback here, and actually here, let's just spawn creeps if it lets it. I don't know why I didn't do it. 1 second. Maybe it's because I'm not a color. Okay. Sorry. So, hers would auto spawn there. If I delete this zone, then we see that they would have spawned in lane 3 and lane 2. So, 25% over here for one of those, but we kind of don't care about that. And then lane 2 is going to come up with X. Sorry, I'm not super duper used to TTS at all. So if the bristleback was spawned here, it's like, okay, this is cool. This is going to go here. Any sort of pump or whatnot, Legion Commander's dead. For the sake of it, let's say we try to line up with X to make this a good lane, since we saw the one melee creep is going to go there. We don't want him to go to tower. So we're going to take 8 damage here. This Legion Commander could have potentially go towards ours, but the big thing here is the subsequent attack. So if they go like this to set up like aggressive features, and this ends up with either of them, it can block this because of the 2 armor from Treant and take like 6. So the Kanna's kind of doing her job. The dilemma is you're gonna struggle a bit in the other 2 lanes. If your opponent has anything that kind of sets them back, like, you can run into a problem here. So let's say the opponent has Vicious Nasal Goo, which is Bristleback's signature card. They can shrink the Legion Commander, then KO it, and now you'll have no heroes over there, looking at 16 coming down damage. Then you'll have this guy will die, the Axe and the Bristleback will take damage, and you're okay here, but it's like kind of not amazing, and you're really far behind here, and you're not super far ahead here, because you're just having like kind of just generic melee creeps. Melee creeps are very good at kind of random spawning and blocking opposing heroes, because of the way it ends up working with melee creeps pretty much always dying against the opposing hero and kind of staying in a kind of small contrite space, I guess is how I'd say it. So I think like Kanna's big thing there is that you're hoping that she can take over that lane by herself, but a lot of the time it ends up weakening your other lanes quite a bit. The random melee creep spawns are relatively huge. The reason being is because of the arrows. So let's see if I can do the arrows here. So like in this situation, Legion Commander comes over and goes to the right. This melee creep will actually never spawn there because of Kanna. So when melee creeps spawn and they get in the way, like, things can sometimes be huge. So like, let's say, what the heck? So if this melee creep had spawned here and then this one came here, then we would have got a full 8 block out of it. Sure, that doesn't happen frequently, but if it happened in the inverse as well, you're gonna block 8 damage worth to your tower from there. So like, you kind of lose some of your tempo aspect by your tower getting bashed to pieces, because all it takes is a single duel for them to fight if Legion Commander's down the armor, or there is a weapon item on Bristleback giving them pump, and she's out of the way. No melee creep would have spawned in this lane, and you're taking a bunch to the dome. That kind of just makes Kanna kind of bad. Prey on the Weak's very, very strong. There's very specific decks where she's good, but I don't think she can be used in essentially every deck. The fact that your opponent knows that your melee creep's never going to go into the other lanes and kind of give them any sort of random problems with RNG is kind of huge. And it's just one of those things where I think her limiting the RNG is often much worse for you than it is for the opponent. Um, sure, if you're playing like any sort of pumps, the melee creeps there are going to get ridiculous. I think in the blue-green deck it's very different because kind of in the blue-green deck you can set up there, then quorum, and kind of just ruin people. So it's very tough to kind of gauge what's going on. But I just kind of wanted to talk about Kanna because I think it's a huge drawback that people really aren't going to be aware of. I played a lot of her at the beginning. I read her, thought she was completely broken. And as I played her more and more, I realized how much I kind of lost with the melee creeps not spawning into the other lanes, and then the arrows, almost for the most part, not mattering. It was just really my heroes versus their heroes and or their melee creep. Because let's say I don't spawn here and I don't know, spawn with the Kanna lane, this axe is pretty much going to keep bashing to my tower until I put something in front of it. And I really don't want to give up cards because I don't want to put a Bronze Legionnaire in front of him. It's just going to die. And in my subsequent spawns, I've got a Zeus who's just really tiny. He loses to every single red guy that they have in the start. So, like, sure, it may not matter if you're playing against, like, another blue deck, but then blue decks have at any cost. So, like, what's Kanna do there after she puts all the melee creeps and then they just wipe it out with that any cost or annihilation? It just kind of ends up feeling bad there, running into any of the wipes. In theory, you could be like, all right, well, you ran into green, but if you run into a treant who's also getting melee creeps, your melee creeps aren't beating their melee creeps. So you're getting 2 more around, but you're losing. And if, let's say, they don't line up together, and it kind of ends up like this, then your Kanna's never getting through to the melee creep. The treant's going to auto-kill this. So every time they spawn, you're going to get 1 in front of the treant, and he'll take 2 damage at a time, but they're just going to, get the gold. This melee creep's not going to lose to that one. So, like, you're essentially generating 1 additional melee creep, but you're not really getting anywhere. There are some amazing times, though, where, let's say, this is Kanna versus, like, Bristleback like this. Then you've got a melee creep just kind of stuffing Bristleback round after round. So, like, there are benefits, there are downfalls. It's the same thing for every card. So I just kind of wanted to point out that Kanna is, while it's very strong, is just kind of not a world beater. And she can actually pretty much cost you games against better players. Better players will be able to more accurately abuse the fact that your melee creeps are going here, so they can kind of play accordingly and set up for future rounds with their heroes deploys, and after seeing where their melee creep goes, decide where are the better odds. And it's kind of just one of those things where to set up your hero for the 4th slot is hugely important. So, like, in this deck, I think Bristleback can be very good at going, all right, my hero killed their creep, their hero's bashing face, or my creep, and now in the subsequent round, I can Bristleback to make sure that they line up together. Kanna can be beneficial there, but I think she's just a huge negative overall. There's going to be decks that are built for her and are be able to completely, like, nullify that negative, and that's perfectly fine. I think if you have a way to nullify her negative aspect, then you're going to be in a good spot. It's just that more often than not, I've noticed that there are just times where an opposing aggro deck would just kind of start hitting my tower round after round, and I would have to, like, come in and try to kill that character, just to try to, like, even out. And at that point, I also have to hope that Kanna did something for her lane to kind of win and snowball over in. But that's all I have for today's video. Let me know thoughts, theories. I feel like I didn't do this honestly well enough, but I'm going to keep trying and going at it. And I kind of want to talk about different cards as time goes on, one hero at a time. But thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. You guys have a great one. Check out our website. Have more articles coming as we go. And have a good one. Deuces.